All right, everybody. Joseph Gibson here, podcasting from Greensboro, North Carolina tonight. I've got a good show here lined up. Usually we do Tuesday nights, 6:30 p.m., and we're with the Republic. But tonight, hopefully, a lot of people from the Republic will be on here, because tonight I'm going to have a couple guests. Actually, I'm going to have a couple sheriffs on here that I'm going to have to call here. I told them I was going to call them live on the show. It breaks down the confusion instead of telling people to call in the number, and sometimes they call in early and they don't know, and it screws up the beginning of the show. So I just figured I'd call them. He should be waiting for my call, and I'll connect him. I had a conversation with him earlier this afternoon, and I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation about our republic and about the governor out there in Michigan and a lot of things that have transpired and a lot of things that are happening out there and about the status of our republic and really where we're going as a country right now. Because, as I said in the conversation with the sheriff earlier, is that I thought that with the wave that they said, the voting that took place Tuesday, it doesn't look like that really America is ready. I mean, I just don't think that maybe we have to suffer some more. Maybe we have to have the diesel shortage. Maybe we have to have some false flags. Maybe we have to have, bread lines. Maybe we have to have Social Security checks stop going out. Maybe we have to have the Federal Reserve raise interest rates a couple more times so the inflation really busts us in the head. Maybe we have to pay $15 for a gallon of milk instead of $5. I don't know. What is it? What is it with the people out there? I just don't know. I just don't understand. What does it take to wake the American people up? And by all means, I don't condone violence or any type of violent revolution, but anyone who knows who's been following this podcast for years, and many people I've interviewed and had on this podcast, many controversial people, controversial figures, you could say conspiracy nuts or what have you. I mean, I've had the former Prime Minister of Canada on here when I broke the story about the Falun Gong, about organ harvesting in China, and the Pelletier case about the CPS kidnapping ring that I remember talking about that back in 2014, and then Glenn Beck picked it up. I had Terry LaPointe on here from Medical Kidnap. All these things that we've talked about over the years, and you think that the people would finally get it in their head. And when I had the Army team on here, and we were putting together a team to go over to combat ISIS, I had Sean Rowe and U.S. Army veterans, Special Forces, and several other military people on here, and we were going to head over there, and we were going to go do combat with ISIS. I remember we had it all lined up, put together. He was on the O'Reilly factor, raised money for the funding, and Obama shut us down. Nope, not going to do that. You stay right put where you're at. You don't go messing around over there in our affairs. And that was a big thing, I remember. So I had them come and knocking on my door plenty of times to ask questions about that. But throughout all the years, so tonight we're going, like I said, we're going to bring on the sheriffs and hopefully have a conversation, because the sheriffs really are our line of defense in the county level, and putting together committees and assemblies throughout the country. Constitutional sheriffs are our last line of defense of really hanging on to the last thread of our republic, and really what we have left as a country. And before I make the call here to the sheriffs, just think, those of us that are 40, 45, 50, whatever, even those of us that are 60, 70 that are listening, think back 30 years ago, 40 years ago, how different our country looked, how much different the stage was and what we were talking about. And compare it to today, it's got to disgust everybody out there, and the frustration where what can we do? What can we do? And that's what we're going to try to find out tonight. We're going to try to find out what can we do, and hopefully people from the militia community will be on here. Hopefully Mike will be on here, and he's going to come on. Hopefully Mike Singer there, he's the one that actually put the idea in my head to contact some of these sheriffs, so hopefully he'll be on here. So let me reach out to these sheriffs, and I'm going to call them live right now, and they should be waiting for my call. And just let me type in the number here. It's live radio. We're 100% live, nothing scripted or edited. So I like it when I used to call the people and ask them if they accepted Federal Reserve notes, and then they'd they say, no, we don't accept Federal Reserve notes here, sir. Little did they know that they didn't even know what a Federal Reserve note was. But all right, 80. Okay, let me call this first gentleman right here. Hopefully that's the number right. Yes. How you doing? It's Joseph Gibson calling you from Restoring the Republic, Understanding the Times in which we live today. We're live on the air right now. How you doing, buddy? How you doing?
I'm fine. How are you?
All right. I've got a few people on the line with me, also a couple other sheriffs, constitutional sheriffs. But first, if you can you just introduce yourself and maybe just open yourself up like that on the platform first?
Sure. Sheriff Leaf, Berry County, Michigan. Serving my 5th term, and I've been at the sheriff's office for about 35 years now, and I did one of those leaps. I went from deputy all the way up to sheriff, was never a command officer in between. I just rolled the dice, ran for office, and here I am.
And you got in there, you ran for office, and the people selected you. So, and that's what's
right.
so important about the sheriffs. And I did my intro tonight with that actually about the sheriffs. The sheriffs really are they're the highest, I guess you could say, politician in the county, right? In their city or town and borough. They're the elected. They're elected by the people, not like the police
right.
departments or police chiefs that are appointed. Correct?
That is correct.
So, as out there in Michigan, and I'm going to let you know, I didn't mention this to you earlier on the phone, but with Michigan's been on the news a lot with the governor, and also with the case with the attempted kidnapping of the governor, supposedly, with the militia members out there. I wanted to ask you about that. Barry Croft actually used to call into the show a lot. Actually, he used to call in the show, and several militia members used to call in. And what's your opinion on the militia in Michigan? I mean, are they these renegades like the federal FBI wants to paint them, and these people that are out there, they're ready to snatch up the governor and commit these crimes, these horrific things that the media is portraying, or are these just regular guys out there that look, the Constitution says we are all the militia, technically, right? So
that is correct.
What's the deal here?
Yeah. There's all kinds of information on it. Even the Heller case even mentions that. And that was the most recent one that I know of that mentions it. And Michigan, we've always had, ever since I can remember when I was a kid in high school, I remember the militias being pretty active here in the state. And it seems like every time we got a very left-wing governor or president, the militias always grew. And and every time the militias grew, they'd put undercover people inside and see about controlling them, getting information.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 So,
I know you can't. I know you can't comment in your official capacity on some things, but we know that. Look, people can be enticed to do things and entrapped to do things. I'm going to be honest with you. Barry Croft's called into his show many, many times, and never once did he advocate violence or doing anything horrendous. He was just a 3%er type of guy and believed in his country and just was worried about it and wanted to see things change. And I don't know what the specifics of the case, but, apparently they were attempting to kidnap the governor of your state, and now 2 of them are sitting in jail. 2 of them have been acquitted, actually, but 2 of them are sitting in jail now awaiting sentencing, I believe, and Barry's one of them, and that's a shame, really, because I just don't think that it unraveled the way it should have unraveled the case. And I believe it hung jury the first time. The prosecutors, but look how much money they spent. I mean, to prosecute these good gentlemen. So it's just.
You also have to question one other thing on that. You're the defendant. There's the prosecution. You're picking the jury, and you both agree who the jury is going to be. The jury's sworn in. That's when double jeopardy kicks in. You go through the trial. Prosecution couldn't get a conviction because it has to be unanimous, and it's what they call the hung jury. Constitution says you're not supposed to be put twice in jeopardy. Why are we allowing that?
Correct. Yeah. Well, we're allowing that because we have a de facto corporation that's really hijacked our country, and we've lost our way, and we've lost our history, and we don't understand really throughout history what has happened and transpired. And many people aren't taught that in schools today, like we discussed earlier. The children have been attacked at a very young age, and the Communist Manifesto and the progressive movement since the 1900s has really, really infiltrated our schools so badly and so effectively now that I don't know if we can turn things around. I really don't. And just before I connect, I got Mike Singer on the phone on the line with me. He's from Florida, and he probably wants to interact with us too. He's from the National Militia Movement, and he's trying to basically build the righteous people from around the country that say, hey, the people have a right to address their representatives lawfully. Of course, we don't condone any type of violence whatsoever. We're not talking about people out there that are listening. We're not talking about storming capitals. We're talking about lawfully addressing our government through our elected representatives. That's what the people are allowed to do through the Constitution. This show supports the Constitution and law. We're a country of laws, okay? So with that being said, before I connect Mike, what's the biggest obstacles in your county that you're facing right now? I heard some things last night when I was talking to what's his name, Mr. Martin there, some things, obstacles that you're facing or accusations that are happening. I don't know. Is it gossip? I don't know. But can you just open up to me and tell me what in your county, what is the biggest things that that's a challenge to your office as being sheriff in your county today, right now, in 2022?
I'd have to say denial. Way too many people are in denial of what we're facing right now, and that's that communist movement. And they don't understand it. You're looking at it, it's been going on since, 1919, when the Communist Party started in the United States here and funded by Joseph Stalin himself. And then the ACLU started less than a year later in 1920, and their job was to go protect the Communist Party because they were going to stir the pot. And I'll tell you what, they did a really good job, didn't they?
Yeah.
So people are in denial that all that history exists, because they can still take their child to a soccer game, they can still go to high school football games, but they don't see that the taxes that are paying unnecessarily. They don't see the collection of data on you daily. Like Facebook. How much of the information you put on Facebook is sold to our CIA or to our federal government? No,
I never thought about that.
Yeah, and they don't understand that that's pretty serious. That guy got arrested. It
violates our Fourth Amendment, right? Our Fourth Amendment. It violates our constitutional Fourth Amendment rights, correct? I mean, I would think so.
Yeah, because in Michigan here, we got handgun registration. And people are going, oh, that's no big deal. Well, guess what? Michigan just flipped completely blue. The House and the Senate. We were red with the House, Senate, Governor, Secretary of State, Attorney General. Well, then all of a sudden, one election, they got Attorney General, Governor, and Secretary of State. Secretary of State, first or second week in office, goes out and does a contract with that Eric. I don't know if you're familiar with Eric or not.
Yes, I am.
The Electronic Registration Information Center. And they don't understand what the chess pieces are that are being set up. And now we have this handgun registration. Come January, there's going to be a flood of gun grabs by those Democrats. And I don't want to call them Democrats because there's some conservative ones we have here still in Michigan. This is the Communist Party overtaking of the Democrat Party.
Amen, that's correct.
Well, where did they go? Where'd the Communist Party go? Right around the 80s. Where'd they go? Yeah, they took over the Democrat Party, and they
that's right.
were slowly taking it over for years. Well, so anyhow, the denial of the people that open their eyes and see that big picture. When we had two proposals on the ballot.
But you being on the front line sheriff, the elected representative, tell me something. I talked to Stephen Reams out in Colorado. I can name many sheriffs that I've spoken to over the years. They said, when it comes to the Constitution, I'm about the Constitution, and that's it. I mean, I'm sure you've seen the interviews. They even had them on Fox News. This sheriff, he says if you violate the Constitution, he'll arrest you, and he's going to enforce the Constitution, stand by the Constitution. And they try to put their media spin on it. Even Fox News does it. But, you obviously appear to be a sheriff that's going to stand for the Constitution. They try to do a gun grab that's unconstitutional. Or an executive order if Biden doesn't get his way through the House or the Senate and get something passed lawfully through the constitutionally, which violates our Second Amendment rights anyway. But if he doesn't go through the process and signs an executive order, because he's already said he wants to come after the assault weapons, he said he's going to come after them like a devil. That's what he said the other night. He signs an executive order. They come in, the feds come in and say, Sheriff, we're going to come in your county. we're gonna start snatching. We need to go. These are a list of people that have assault weapons. You with us or not?
Oh, hell no. I
Amen,
will be
brother.
arresting
Amen.
them. Yeah, because that's a property crime. They're taking your property, and they're planning on permanently depriving you of that property, and that's a crime. They cannot do that. The Heller case was clear. Commonly owned firearms, and then he even explained the militia, and he was right on the militia. The militia is the people themselves. You cannot lawfully disarm the militia. And then I love the well-regulated. Oh, that means we get to regulate the heck out of it, and we can tell you what guns to own, how much ammunition.
Yeah.
No, it does not. It does not say that anywhere. The word regulated means we have to be regularly ready to go. That's regular.
Well, they close it out with shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed.
Oh,
what does that not mean? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and the fact that courts won't use that because, well, back then they didn't have nuclear weapons. And I remember,
True.
I remember talking to I was teaching a concealed pistol class, and I had a woman bring that up way back. This is when we first got our concealed pistol licensing. And she says, well, the way you view the Second Amendment, we should all have nuclear warheads. And I looked at her and smiled, and I said, well, we wouldn't be $13 trillion in debt now, would we? And and I was saying that smile just to kind of get her to smile, but I think she understood after I said it what it was about.
Amen. I'm going to bring on Mike. He's the National Militia Coordinator right now. I'm going to bring him on. He's very well spoken. Mm-hmm. Bring him on. And I see 623-806. I'm going to be careful with the calls here. Like I said, I'm not trying. I know I got a couple other sheriffs here waiting in the wings. So let me bring on 305. Mike, go ahead. You're on, Mike. Go ahead. You're with our sheriff here from Michigan. You heard the conversation. You were here waiting. You got the floor. Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Joe, and good evening, Sheriff Darleaf. Really a pleasure and an honor to be here with both of you. So, let me run by, what I always promote as being, a blessing that was given to me. I was inspired, I believe. I do believe that our battle is a spiritual battle, and there is a moral aspect to everything that we're doing. The whole idea of the reality that the United States, the whole world, has been infiltrated and hijacked by a new world order, one world government regime, which is a godless communist regime. People always associate communism with China or Russia. No, those are just other nations, and they should be permitted to run their affairs however they choose. The communists that have infiltrated and hijacked the government of the United States of America, they use their money to bribe and buy off and pay our elected government officials, which is obviously a big problem. So the last 2 years, because of the global pandemic, scamdemic BS that they put on, their depopulation campaign, I spent 2 years building the bigvirushoax.com to put the cream of information regarding viruses, what they are, what they're not, the science behind it, vaccines, what's in them, the merging of technologies with vaccines, how they're trying to use this whole thing as a manipulation and control tactic over humanity as well as a depopulation campaign. So I really prayed in earnest for months unto our Heavenly Father, the Creator, God Almighty. And I said, please give me, what is the solution here? At the bigvirushoax.com, I created a page called the Patriot Action Plan and Patriot Action Warriors. That was my initial, kind of putting out ideas of, come on, man, where are all the people that are going to stand up for their dignity and their rights? And I pointed out that the United States Constitution, Bill of Rights, federal civil rights, those laws don't give us our rights. Those laws protect our God-given inalienable rights of individual sovereignty, self-determination, free will, liberty, responsible freedom, which is another issue because we know that these communists – Yes.
I want to put it in a little bit of perspective, what you just said there. I don't know how many listeners you have out there, but if you go look at that Constitution, it's actually job descriptions. Okay? You have a job description for the president. You have a job description what the courts are supposed to be doing. You have a job description for the House of Representatives, the Senate, and they're not supposed to be going in each other's jobs. So I tell people to look at it like a union shop. If you're a press operator and the light bulb goes out above your press, do you change that light bulb as the press operator? Well, the answer to that is no, and people ask, well, why not? Because it's not his job. And if we kind of look at...
That's a great Great. That's great. I like that. That's not.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that as well. It makes sense, and it kind of goes hand in hand with another thing that some people will often kind of reference to me, that the Constitution is actually just, it has nothing to do with our rights. It limits the government, right? It's checks and balances on the government. But, I guess I'm looking at it from the reverse. So I guess what I want to do is express what it is that I'm doing, I believe by inspiration, and get the sheriff's feedback on it. Essentially, it came to me that the answer lies in the simple step-by-step narrative of, yes, we the people across the board are the militia. That's where the militia comes from. We're the militia. But I recognize that there's, I believe, a psyop that has been put out for decades to give people a wrong idea or a wrong impression, or at least a negative impression about the militia being a bunch of good old boys, white boys in the backwoods with guns that are getting ready to commit acts of sedition and insurrection, right? So I believe that was put in place not only to deter people, but it's a double psyop because it makes a lot of people think, oh yeah, the militia's going to take care of it. They're in the backwoods doing their thing. When in reality, that's not happening at all. In fact, this whole private in the backwoods, militia groups that are saying we're in secret, that is the FBI trying to ensnare people, trying to entrap people. Oh, come over here and let's see how hardcore they are so we can get something on them to take them into custody. So what came to my mind is that what we need is to recognize that since we the people are the militia, we literally need to have in every single county throughout every single state essentially a militia headquarters where there is a point of contact, a point man, 2 or 3 or 4 of them, county coordinators, state coordinators that are there to say we're going to do gun safety training once a month. We're going to work in friendly cooperation with our constitutional sheriffs. We're going to have monthly meetings on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. codes and what our laws and rights are. We're going to be a community organizing effort, not wearing camis and sneaking in the backwoods, but wearing T-shirts that say Second Amendment, I am militia, right? Second Amendment, lawful and peaceful until forced to defend our community, right? So it's a grassroots up, we the people connecting and organizing. So I created righteousarmy.org under the premise that it's those of us who are of like mind that really need to do that, which would generally be people considered center to right, Christians, patriots, truthers, Trump supporters, because a whole bunch of the people that are to the left, especially the far left, they don't like the Second Amendment anyway. They don't like the Constitution anyway. So while the militia is for everybody, this nation's divided. So when I say those of us who are of like mind, to the most part, I believe it can be narrowed down to here's the things that we all agree upon: traditional family values, God, moral virtue. Here's the things we're opposed to. We're opposed to a liberal, progressive, transsexual, transgender, New World Order depopulation agenda and transvestites dancing in the kindergarten classes for our children. We're opposed to all of that. So it's those people that need to unite and organize in their counties, grassroots, based on common law. Charles has talked about common law courts. I was pleased to hear this afternoon that Sheriff Darleaf is big time into the common law and has groups where they discuss common law. So these are issues that need to be discussed in friendly cooperation. The militia leaders, those that are taking the reins to say, yes, I'm going to organize we the people in our community based on the fact that we are militia and it's a new flavor, a new understanding. We're going to be a community organizing, community effort thing here where, again, gun safety, an annual barbecue, right? We're working together county to county, state to state. And yes, people asked me early on, well, man, Mike, how are you going to organize all the different militias? I said, there's not a bunch of different militias. There's only one. We, the people, are the militia. Only to the extent that it should absolutely be based upon county and based upon states. So we need 3 or 4 or 5 county coordinators organizing their county. We need 3 or 4 or 5 state coordinators helping to organize all the counties in their state.
We got all that. Mike, we got all that, but I just want you to coincide here with the sheriff here because I got a couple other sheriffs here on the line also and other members here. But give me a direct question for the sheriff. I know you're passionate about the militia, and God bless you, but,
Well,
go ahead.
Not everybody's familiar with what I just presented. Most are stuck in this concept of the good old boys in the backwoods, and they don't see it in the way I just described it. In fact, when I had a militia meeting with Brian Hunt and 8 other, militia commanders from several states, they all had that stereotypical in secret kind of, thing going on, what I was expressing to them, pretty much everything I said now. So frankly, yeah, I'd love to hear the sheriff's feedback on that approach, that new flavor, that understanding, that awareness, that connectivity.
All right, go ahead. All right, thanks. Our mission here is to connect the sheriffs around the country with Sheriff Mack, constitutional sheriffs, other sheriffs around the country that are constitutional, that are going to stand for the republic no matter what, because like this sheriff just said, his state just flipped. And they're coming for this these communists are coming for us. They're going to come for our guns. They're coming for our rights. They're going to take them. We need these sheriffs. We have to have them. We need them. They're our brothers. They're our sisters out there,
I'm taking a breath for you. Reality is this: you guys call it militia, but at the sheriff level, it's the posse, and it goes into the posse comitatus laws. And what shuts down a lot of the posses throughout the state here in Michigan is the insurance companies. The insurance companies don't want to pay more, and because you're going to get sued, they're going to try and sue the posse out of existence, and that's how the left works. The biggest problem we have is education. It's been kept such a secret. You want to talk about secret meetings. Well, the secret is they don't teach us in our schools. They don't teach that as the actual duty. And how many people knew out there that there's basically two functions of a militia? One, obviously, is an armed person to protect the land, but anytime you do jury duty, you're doing militia-like duty. That goes all the way back to the 12 tribes of Israel. And so we just didn't come up with this idea of a militia. What happened is that Second Amendment, it says a well-regulated militia. So that word a tells everybody that it's a militia that already exists. And so we need to start showing our children and young teens and college students, hey, this is what this is about. And I agree with you. It's not all about sitting back in the backwoods, because if you were to activate a militia, it's like an army. You're going to have somebody who can cook, somebody who can maintain vehicles. Negotiators. You're going to have people who nowadays look at the tech stuff that you're going to have people in with a militia. So it's not like the old days where you arm on up and go take on the redcoats.
And you brought up something, Sheriff. You brought up something too, like for instance, back in Michigan days, Norm Olson. I'm sure you remember him, Norm Olson. He was one of the founders of the militia community in the 90s, actually, when they went before the Senate Judiciary Committee. I played clips of him questioning what was going on. And the thing of it is that we look at all these patriots like yourself, who's now, you said, when you were younger and you've grown up, and now the militia community, how it was different and how it's changed, and then how we get one of these liberals in office, like your governor, and the militia population grows, and then there's an attack on them, and there's an arrest. Like I remember, I've been in this patriot community so long now. I started out 17 years old. I remember the Montana Freemen out there. I remember that big story, and then Randy Weaver. So that's when I actually woke up and said, "What's going on here?" And started. But really, Sheriff, you have a whole different world. You're a sheriff. You deal with everything that's going. A lot of things that are going on in your county. I looked at your page, your Facebook page, and the amount of sheriffs you have, and you supervise, and your deputies you have, and your county is obviously growing and expanding, but the cities that surround you are so different in aspect and population wise. Do you see that affecting you? Before I start, I want to connect to some other callers that are waiting. Thank you for waiting. I appreciate it, guys that are waiting on the line. But do you see this affecting your county at all? Because you say your county is pretty much awoke, and you're all pretty much like-minded individuals, and which is great. I mean, it's a great place to go live and go to. But go ahead.
Yeah, we have a large deer hunting, farming, redneckish, I guess you want to call it, population here, and we even have it's getting more and more diverse. But it's kind of funny because the diversity I'm seeing coming in here, they're kind of redneckish too, and so one of the things I like doing to people is I like giving them examples of current militias or current posses that were formed and how they were effective. And one of my favorite ones is Flight 93. You know, these guys are getting phone calls because the jet was flying low enough to where they were getting signal on their cell phones, and their family or their loved ones are saying, hey, you got to do something. These pilots are going to crash this plane into, I think it was going to be into the White House, and you guys are all going to be killed. What did they do? They formed a militia right there. And I like saying that they didn't even have to get a permit for that. So they formed a militia and saved probably hundreds, if not thousands, of lives. And that's a prime example of a more modern-day militia. We had a guy who torched a patrol car here in Hastings and took off running from the Hastings officer. 3 or 4 guys surrounded him and took him down for the officer. That's your militia. That's your posse.
That's your militia. Yeah, that's your militia.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Those are some
yeah.
easy examples for the public to understand that. And
that's what the militia is, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Our God-given duties, and whatnot. But I got 623. I don't know who you are. I'm going to connect you. Area code 623. Connect you, and then 806. And then I got Charles here waiting 325, and he's our common law expert. So yeah, I'm sure he'll have a good question here.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that might be another sheriff here. But let's see, 623. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is actually Joe Malone from yesterday's broadcast. I'm the state coordinator for Righteous Army for the state of Arizona and Maricopa County. I'm glad you brought up Barry Crofts because he's, to some people he's just a guy in the newspaper, but that's actually a friend of mine. And we were talking in groups, in chats, and along with, I don't know if you know about Casey Massey, or if you're familiar with him.
Yep, Casey story down at the border, yes.
Yeah, and when there got to a point where Casey just didn't want to live anymore in this environment and with this government, and he took off in the woods and decided to go out on his own terms. And me and Barry were actually talking about being the guys who were going to go search for his body after he decided to just leave on his own terms. He got pushed to the fringes, and that's what the federal government will do. And when I was campaigning on a platform as a constitutional sheriff for Maricopa County in 2020, and I was illegally searched by the FBI, taken into custody, denied bail, all over possession of a firearm, and saying that it was prohibited possession, and it came down to things like stalking horse doctrine, things that the de facto courts actually say are illegal searches. And then my lawyer was a leftist who wouldn't defend my case. I tried to fire her, and I couldn't even do that. I couldn't represent myself. It was bizarre. And even when the FBI wrote their report on my beliefs and my freedom of conscience and put it in a document saying, based on, and this is their exact words, they say, based on Malone's belief in strict adherence to the Constitution of the United States, he is a threat to Homeland Security. And I don't get how you can be any more treasonous than that.
Well, I want to put this out there for the sheriffs. Yeah, let me put this out there real quick. I'm going to throw this out there. Are the FBI the big bad guys out there, the big bad wolf? I mean, surely I've met FBI agents. I mean, you just said Homeland Security. Their job is to protect also, and are there bad apples? Are there people with an agenda, a liberal agenda? I don't know. I'm throwing this out there on the floor. I'm not going to give you my opinion. I believe that there's good in everybody. We have to find it, and you have to pull it out of people before they get lost. That's how my opinion, anyway. We're all God's children. But some of us get lost, and there's nothing we can do. It's too late, and then the end comes, like you just said about KC and with Barry, And Barry was a friend of mine also. He called in this podcast show, I've said in the beginning many, many times. I speak to him many times off the air. And I don't believe those things he did. I don't believe those things that what they said. I don't believe it because I had private conversations with him. But with all due respect to the FBI, Are they this big bad agency that's working for the New World Order? They're going around, prowling around at sheriff's departments, and are they? I mean, let me ask my guest, the sheriff, first. I mean, have you had any dealings with the FBI, or what's your opinion? I mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but
I had them do a search warrant on my place, and every media was setting up their satellites in there before I even got back to the office. And had to do with whether or not somebody was killed in the line of duty, and he was an undercover officer, so it was a difficult decision. And at one time I said it was, and I said it wasn't. Then, like today, I really don't know. And so they did a search warrant in my office, but the search warrant was about 3 months after I sent Boehner. Remember Boehner when he was a Speaker of the House? I sent him a letter saying that their gun control that they were trying to pass with after Sandy Hook wasn't going to be welcome in my county. And 3 months later, they decided to do a search warrant on a case that was like 5 years old, almost 5 years old. And then they sat on it, and I got somebody running against me, and that's his number one thing, is how embarrassing it was that the FBI come into his search warrant. And reality is I signed a consent form. What do you want? Here's your consent form. And
search. Go ahead. I got nothing to hide.
Go look. And that's, as I say, that's their one mulligan.
So basically, what I'm saying is true. That they have bosses. They have bosses with an agenda, and these guys are out for their paychecks. And really, they need to step back and say, hey, do the right thing. If you're an FBI agent out there listening, and I'm sure there is, I'm sure they are listening right now.
Well, let me tell them this then. Let me tell them this.
Okay.
Because Roger Stone, when they did that raid on Roger Stone's house with all that military equipment, could you have handled that with a phone call? The guy's 63, 64 years old, had grandkids. Same thing with Cliven Bundy. Cliven Bundy went through all of this airport security, so he was sterile from any weaponry. They go land his jet, and I forgot what airport it was. Rather than going to the terminal, they take him way on out to the tarmac, and they surrounded the place with a tactical team. The guy was 73 years old when that happened.
Yeah,
so
I know. I followed Bundy's case.
My question is what the hell are you guys thinking? If it's something you can handle with a phone call, now you're doing third world acts. You're doing basically Nazi tactics, and that's a violation of your oath.
You just said a mouthful right there, a violation of your oath. That you swear an oath to uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And you and I had a conversation earlier. I'm going to connect the next caller here, 806, and then I got Charles.
Sure.
I appreciate the time you're spending with me here on the phone line here tonight. It's awesome conversation. But they take an oath, and I put on a uniform, and when I first put the uniform on, I was like, look, and I see the public, the general public, and their disdain for that badge, for that uniform, and the attitude I get. Hey, sir, you can't park right there. I'm gonna have to write you a ticket if you don't move. You got to move. Go to F this, F that. I'm like, whoa, take it easy. I'll help you out here. I'll help you move your car. And that's the attitude. They hate the authoritative aspect of our laws. We're a country of laws. The reason why you can't park there is because you're going to cause an accident. There's 8 cars behind you that have to get around you right now. So you have to move, right? Safety.
Right.
But they don't see that. But they see the uniform, and they hate me,
Hey, Joe. Could I ask you a question that I was wanting to get to? Because in my situation, I noticed that it was basically like the death from 1,000 cuts. I saw so many unconstitutional practices being implemented, and when it came time to fight in the court, even the rights to a speedy trial and a lawyer who would actually defend my rights and trying to fire, it turned into a case that would drag out for over a year, and they wear you down with your ability, and it's all because of little deviations over a long period of time that have infected our American jurisprudence. And what I wish I would have had, because I was even writing letters to Sheriff Lamb, and I had one of my buddies who was trying to contact Sheriff Lamb and say, look, this guy's a political prisoner and he's in your county. And I wish I would see more constitutional sheriffs start to stand up and do something about the little deviations, like even felon prohibitions. Felon prohibitions are not justifiable under the Constitution. And it's the little things. I know you guys have to deal with the political aspect too, but when we allow the little deviations, they become precedent. And if we stood up against that in 1968 when they first created it, maybe we wouldn't be here.
All right, you can comment on that. Go ahead, Sheriff. Go ahead. You want to make a comment?
There's a lot of things they should have handled way back when, and we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you start with that?
I know,
and I'm not saying that to be demeaning to you at all, because I understand.
Yeah.
See, there's also some of these titles. With the title, I think it's the 83s, where it talks about if we do our job, but we step outside of our boundaries of our job, we can be held personally liable for that. In other words, I can't use government money to go protect myself.
Yeah, color of law. Yeah.
And the same thing goes if I unlawfully house somebody in a jail. And I wish I had a great answer for you on that, but I understand where you're coming from. You go look at these guys here in Michigan here with the FBI and that plot against their governor, and some of the stuff the FBI did was just, what are you thinking? You can't be offering
enticing them.
a card, with $5,000 on it. The guy turned it down 5 times, and at what point are you going over that line? And I don't know.
I agree with you, but at the same time, though, working undercover work. I've worked undercover. People that know me on here, and they've accused me, you're an undercover Fed. No, I'm not. But years ago, I worked undercover, and like I said, I put on the uniform now as an officer, and I understand the disdain and the mistrust. But there's procedure that has to be followed because the general public doesn't understand that, and that's where we get the separation of the people and the official capacity that the sheriffs or law enforcement or the other agencies are working in. And then we get this conflict, and you get this hatred and disdain. And there has to be an answer. There has to be a happy medium. And maybe it's the Constitution. Just obey the Constitution, like Ron Paul used to always say. I'm going to connect to 806. 806, go ahead. You've been waiting a long time, and then I got Charles in 2, 3, 4, and then we'll get ready to wrap it up. I got 9702 from Colorado. Go ahead. 806.
So this is Eric. You guys are talking about law, and you're talking about the Constitution. And first off, I want to commend the sheriff for doing what he's doing and standing up for his community and upholding the Constitution. But I think the root of the problem here, like the issue you were just articulating, it boils down to a very simple issue, and that is that our government, our country, has been usurped by a corporation and has turned U.S. citizens into property, and they no longer have inalienable rights. I don't know which Constitution is being upheld by the sheriff, but there's 3. And so if you're upholding the Constitution for the United States of America, well, then you support the 14th Amendment. And when you go and you start enforcing statutory law and codes, you're violating in every conceivable way the unalienable rights of the people. And so that would be my first question is, which Constitution is it that we're standing for? And then the other part of my question is, in your county, you mentioned insurance earlier, and one of the biggest issues that the counties face whenever a sheriff like yourself steps up is the fact that you're still incorporated, and therefore you are operating a government franchise, and you are an agent of the government franchise that's controlled by the federal territorial government. And so are you trying to unincorporate your county and establish your common law courts? In general?
That's a good question. That's a good question, yeah.
Well, the problem is how? How do you do all that? There's no instruction manual on it. And this has been ingrained. I mean, you're talking to police academy, they don't teach much on the Constitution. They teach court opinions. And they gear their training toward those court opinions. When you talk about use of force stuff, our training is geared towards the latest opinions. So how do you take that and then, like I said, in a 4-year term, and turn that to where they're common law courts? How do you do that? And then you're going to have a problem with convincing the judges, because there's a lot of power with those judges in that system we're in right now. And then you have prosecutors, you have the public you have to sell this to, because it's all been indoctrinated into them.
Yeah.
Oh, the bar, yeah. This is over 100 years old now.
Well, they're violating the law. The bar, they're foreign adversaries operating as privateers on our soil. So they're actually in violation of the law. And the judges that are benched right now are in violation of the law because they're not upholding the Constitution via the original document. They're upholding the Constitution of the corporate entity, the corporate United States.
But Eric, that's how the flow of the country went after the Reconstruction Acts, and that's the Civil War. What are we going to do? Go back and refight the Civil War? I mean, I'm just going to play devil's advocate here because I'm going to stick up for the sheriff and say, well, the sheriff's he's sworn officer. He's got to uphold the Constitution the best way he can, and I know he swore an oath and to uphold the Constitution. I know Charles wants to get in here, and I'm going to get him in here. I know he's our common law expert too, and Eric is very well versed, very knowledgeable in this, and he's doing a lot of things in the country right now to try to wake people up to what we were talking about. Like you said, Sheriff, how do we do this? But to take the side of the sheriffs, they have people they have to answer to and their constituents also. Remember, they go home at the end of the day. They got families. We all do. And where does this end? Where does it begin? What do we do? Right now we got the most perfect system in the world. Whether we hate it, we love it, or whatnot, it's the most perfect system around the world right now. So maybe we just tweak it, and that's what they're doing, or do we flip the script and go back in time? What do we do?
I don't think you can say that about the American judiciary. It's really the most dystopic nightmare in the world, worse than many countries.
I would agree with
that.
I work internationally with attorneys, and I would absolutely agree with that our court system, our judiciary is just flipped on its head. Before I yield the floor, Sheriff, I would like to offer my knowledge and the work that I do to you to benefit your community. I work with Charles and several other people throughout the country. In fact, I'm in Tennessee right now. I'm from Texas. That's where my home is, but I'm currently in Tennessee, and I travel the country, and I work with counties throughout the country to help them reestablish their common law. And it's really not as complex and as hard as most people think that it is. It's just a foreign concept to them, and I'm sure Charles will agree and have more to add. I yield.
All right, thank you. That's great, that offer's on the table. And Sheriff, maybe before we depart here tonight, you can comment on that. Let me connect Charles. Let me see. He's been waiting a while here, and I got 970 from the Republic of the United States.org. I believe that's my friend from the Republic. Go ahead, Charles. Go ahead. Everyone's mentioned your name here. Go ahead. You're the expert here, the common law expert. Go ahead. Go ahead. You're unmuted, Charles.
Sorry.
No, hang on. There he goes. Yep. You're unmuted now. Go ahead. I'm sorry. That was my fault. Go ahead. You're unmuted.
All right. Thank you. And Eric is a talented guy, and so is Michael, and so is Joe. And I've been working with them in the past, and I'm delighted that Joe's been able to pull together yourself, Sheriff Leaf, and apparently a few other sheriffs here too. This is really great work that Joe is putting together. And as you can tell, I've got a little bit of a reputation here. I'd like to live up to it. I'd like to point out that common law has never really had an opportunity to get its legs in the USA. It had a pretty good start under the Articles of Confederation, but then Roman civil municipal government came in with the 1787-1789 U.S. Constitution document, and most of the states followed that. And so modernly, most of the counties are like what Eric said. They're just franchisees of the civil government of the state. And that is, law dictionaries clearly describe that as being opposed to the laws of nature, okay, because it's top-down authoritarian government. That's how the Roman Empire was engineered, and that's where the statutory civil authority comes from, is from a top-down authoritarian model of government. In contrast therewith, William Blackstone wrote that the common law of England, which we inherited, is based upon the Exodus 18 model of government, and therein Moses and his father-in-law were Moses' father-in-law was telling him he couldn't judge all the cases for Israel. He needed to appoint captains over smaller communities. Maybe you know the verse. Smaller communities of tens and 50s and hundreds and thousands. And there under a common law county is supposed to be 1,000 armed men. That's your posse comitatus, but it's supposed to be politically subdivided. A precinct in the USA proper common law jurisdiction is 100 armed men, and there's 10 precincts to a county, and if you've got your 10 representatives of your county, you've got that's your county court, and the proper terminology for a county under common law jurisdiction, the word county itself is a French and Roman law based word. The proper term in common law jurisdictions here is. We got an interruption there?
No, go ahead. No, that's background noise. Sorry. That's all right. I got a lot of calls here. I got 2 emails from other sheriffs here. One jump in and make a comment on what you just said. But go ahead. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. So, and the common myth is that you sheriffs don't have any judicial power. You're just executive officers there to do whatever kind of Nazi jackbooted thug stuff that the judicial officers tell you to do. That's wrong. A proper county court has the sheriff is the county judge, and he's got general jurisdiction, judicial power, and he's got the right to try. Assemble a jury and follow due process of law. It's not that complicated. And try FBI agents or IRS agents or state police or anybody that is breaching the peace in their county. That's where the real nonviolent revolution is at. And like Eric, I'm at your disposal too. If you want to call on any of us, I'll be glad to work with you, sir. I should probably yield. I laid a lot on you there. I yield.
Sheriff, go ahead. He did lay a lot on you.
Yeah, he missed the chief conservator of the peace. Your sheriff is also the chief conservator of the peace there. And my understanding,
Charles, you see that?
And my understanding with that title, you have that authority to call on those grand juries. And again, it hasn't been done in, 100 years? Maybe more. And, again, it's going to be one of those, you have to pull out an instruction book again and say, all right, how do we do this? How do we lay this out and get it done so it's legal and proper? So you're not violating somebody's rights.
You know what? God calls upon the people of this country. I believe you're a blessed man. I believe that, and there's a reason why we made contact with how we did, and you've made contact with the people on this phone line here tonight. And there's 2 other sheriffs that I got waiting in the wings here. Actually, one of them has to go, and he had a question. I'll post that in the chat box. That's fine. I understand. He has to go. He's on actually working patrol here tonight. But I got 970 from Colorado. I got to connect him, and that's that sheriff right there. He's got to go. But let me connect 970, and then I see 234, and then we'll get ready to wrap it up here. 970, go ahead, from Colorado. I believe that's my friend Jim Carpenter. Go ahead.
Thank you, Joseph. Yeah, what a wonderful conversation tonight. I love it. Woke people, and properly woke. So, you got to laugh at life a little bit. Sheriff, my hat's off to you. My sheriff, you might have heard of him. was Fred McKee from Colorado. He was president at the time of the Colorado Sheriff's Association. When Bloomberg and all the high-powered money decided to come into Colorado and experiment with our gun laws. And that was about the time you got involved in your capacity. So I don't know if you would have heard about him in some of your sheriff's publications. I'm sure he made the front page many times. In 2010, I went to Sheriff McKee. This is a Christian man. I went to church with him. One day he laughed and said, he said, if anything was ever to happen in our church, our problem as law enforcement would be figuring out which bullet killed him. So, gives you a little background on Sheriff McKee. And so I felt comfortable in being straight up and honest with him. And I told him that I'd been called and that I would make a covenant with him as his friend and as a Christian brother that I wouldn't break the law, I wouldn't put him in an uncomfortable position, and I would honor my covenant with my Lord. And so with that, the journey began, and I am the governor of Colorado Free State, because back in 2010, the governors were all served with warrants by warrant officers, and it made the front page news for about 2 days, and then the chatter went down. And that was right after the Michigan church militia had gained so much notoriety because they were bad people for having a good time in the woods, and you may remember that. So it took us down an interesting path of education, and we're so concerned about how confused our American people are, and let's just get down to basics. The reason, in my humble opinion, that they're confused is we are a Judeo-Christian society at heart, by our Constitution and our roots. And with that comes those rights that nobody knows how to pronounce, unalienable and inalienable. They know they're out there, but they're not sure, what it really looks like and how to pronounce it even. And yet, they're all caught up in these contracts that if we do, you do. And all of a sudden, the spider web has got us, and they've got us from birth because they enslave us at birth with the birth certificate. And those bonds are traded, and we're what substantiates the national debt. And that's why, aborting all our kids, we need foreigners to come in to bring birth certificates because we don't have enough offspring to sustain our society anymore as white Judeo-Christians. So, let me cut to the chase because we could talk all night and into the morning, and we could share a lot on both sides. But let me say that there is a solution. Our solution lies in our Heavenly Father and our relationship with Him, and following His laws and His commandments, because there's only one lawgiver, and that is our Heavenly Father. So if it's not of Him, then it is of mankind. So now we get away from common law and we get into codes and statutes and corporate law. And this is part of this confusion factor that we're all involved in. Let me say that my sheriff told me when I talked to him about a sheriff's posse, and he explained what you did about the insurance and the liability and all of that. He said those members of my community that I give out concealed weapons permit to are my posse. I thought that was an interesting concept, but totally right on too. So just a plan of thought. And I understand the dilemma. And a big part of your dilemma is the people that control your paycheck. Not to say you're sold out. Don't misunderstand me. But the governing fathers of the county are the ones that really have to be moved in this issue in order for the county to find true freedom again. I'd encourage you, on a private call, Joe can give you my phone number. Call me anytime, day or night. I'd love to talk to you. I admire what you're doing and your gumption to stand up and show your true moral compass.
Oh, thank you.
Go to our website. Go to our website, republicfortheunitedstatesofamerica.org. Read the Reinhabited books by Gene and David Hertler, volumes 1 and 2. They're about $60 for the pair. They've been acclaimed by people like Perry Stone and David Barton, and this is our future. And this is the direction that this whole show that we're going through for the last few years is where it's taken us. So I highly encourage you to get a sneak preview. You're already involved, whether you know it or not, and I applaud you for that. God bless you. Thank you, Joe.
All right, you're welcome, Jim. I appreciate your comment. I do, and what he's commented on, Sheriff, is that my podcast show is basically trying to restore the republic and all the many patriots across the country that with the many different angles or whatnot and beliefs or standards that they believe in. We all believe in one thing, and that's the Constitution and our republic. And we're watching it like we talked about earlier on the telephone privately. It's going down. And what do we do? How long do we restrain ourselves? You're an officer of the law. You're a sheriff. You have to uphold the law. And like you said, people cut your paycheck doesn't mean you're a sellout, but it means you have a job to do, and we respect that. And with the other sheriffs that are on the line right now, that are listening right now, they want me to ask this question. How can we gather? Sheriff Mack has been out there campaigning, constitutional sheriffs across the country, but yet there's no traction really. There's no grassroots effort that is really taking the people by a storm where we could see a change. We're not seeing any change. We're watching things just keep going down. Is this the way it's going to be? Is what God says? We read the Bible. It says it's all going downhill anyway. So, why not? Let's wait for a good Lord to return. But no, we want to stand up and do what's right because we're good men and we're good women out there. The ladies out there. I'm not trying to bash you. Good ladies and good men out there. So, what do we do? You're a sheriff.
Joe?
You're in a county. You're elected a sheriff. What do we do?
Joe, may I give you a perception?
Yeah, go ahead. Real quick. Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
The people on this call tonight, for the most part, I'm thinking, probably are 50 or older. We know what it was like before our rights became so overwhelmingly infringed and threatened. What they've done is they've controlled the education of our youth, and all they need to do is get past our generation, and they've got the cat in the bag. This is our hill, folks. We need to figure out who we're going to recognize as leadership and unanimously get behind that effort because this is our hill. And this is the time we have to do it. And we know that if we don't do it, somebody will do it for us. And that's a promise. Thanks, Joe.
And Jim, I've spoken with military back in 2010. I sat down with high-level ranking members of the military. Ron Paul, when he was running for president, I sat down with Ron Paul when we started the Restore America plan. Sat down with him in private meetings, and we talked about Navy SEALs coming in, protecting this guy because because we're fighting an evil entity. Mike brought that up earlier. It's a new world order. There's evil out there. It's not about race, black, white, this and that. We're not going to be pigeon-toed like Mike always says also into that garbage. We're a human race. We're people. We're children of God. We're all God's children, and we want to see what's right. We want to do what's right. But we have our people of authority. They're in government, the elected representatives, the people of government. Like we have one sheriff here. Sheriff, can you comment on what you've heard thus far right here? And I got one more caller, and then we'll get ready to wrap it up. Can you go ahead and comment on that, what you've heard thus far?
A lot of it had to do way back in the 1920s when they changed how we were running our schools. A lot of them were run by churches up through the 20s, and then they took that away. And when we started getting away from the churches, which means we got away from God, which is getting away from God's law. So the question is, how do you get back to God's law? And that is so important. And I start looking at the timeline when this happened. It was right about the same time when the Communist Party started rearing their ugly head. And then you start looking at some of their documents, like from Stalin, saying you want to take over the United States, you have to basically get them away from God. And they've done a heck of a job in 100 years doing that to us.
Yeah, they have. They have. You're absolutely correct. 234, I'm going to connect you. Go ahead. 234, go ahead. And then we'll get ready to have a closing thoughts here. Go ahead.
Tave Stanley, State Ohio Militia Coordinator. And I got a question I wanted to ask the sheriff. God bless him, and I feel for him in his job. I can only imagine the turmoil every day that these guys go through. One of my questions is, do you have a problem where do you guys maintain your jails as the sheriff and then your municipalities around bring criminals to you? Is that how you guys function? Okay.
Yeah, we have one centralized jail.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we only have the one centralized jail. When you get up to the like Grand Rapids or Detroit, they have what they call a lockup, and the lockup is basically like for somebody to detox when they're really, really intoxicated.
Okay. Well, we have a problem here with it everywhere in the country, opposed to the catch and release type deal going on. But I've seen twice now, and then I actually seen it on a newscast where the sheriff running the jail, the municipalities are coming in, but they argue with one another. The sheriff isn't letting certain people come in. They're put like if another sheriff would come in with a prisoner, and there's 5 guys waiting to put somebody in the holding to process them, they end up getting into a fight, literally. I mean, it was chaos. I couldn't believe it. Do you see that as a problem because of what's happening with the overall, the catch and release and the frustration that you guys having to deal with the public and the mentality of these criminals? Because they know they're going to get locked up and they're going to get let right back out.
Well, what it seems like to me is that we got so much into collecting money from people who broke the laws that we forgot about maintaining peace. And that's what I love about Sheriff Mack. It's a constitutional officer, and Constitutional Sheriff and Peace Officers Association, peace officer. And we've kind of lost that, keeping the peace. I remember when I first started as a young officer, I had an older police chief, and it was funny. He had this big, long mag light, and he'd take me around town, and he'd smack me in the vest with that mag light anytime he wanted to get my attention and tell me something. And one of the things he told me really stuck in my head. He says, "You know, young man, you don't have to arrest every drunk you come across. You don't have to write a traffic citation everybody who violates. Your job is dealing with assholes. And if you don't know the difference between an asshole and a good law-abiding citizen, you're in the wrong career."
Well said.
And I'm sitting there going, oh.
And you think about how the sovereign citizen thing goes on. We all talk about in this community. Some of these people that pick this up and they see one view of it on a show, and then they think they've got the answer, and they give you guys the hardest time. And I'm thinking to myself, man, this can't help us in any way. But then my other question before we go, I know you guys want to wrap up. I'm a big follower of what's going to happen with the Noahide laws. This country, they're called Noahide laws under Judaism. Every president since Jimmy Carter has signed these into order, and that's what's going to be the fall. It's what's going to be breakdown. And when the Vatican and the other powers that be in religion have come together now, and they are basically forming a one-world religion as well to follow the one-world government. The Noahide laws put in place where there's pedophilia allowed. If you speak badly against Judaism, you're beheaded. And this is no joke. This is something that people have to take seriously and do the research, because it is here. We see these presidents signing it and agreeing to it because of the people that basically they're handlers. And I don't think enough people are aware of it. And I just wanted to make that point. I hope so. If you didn't know about it or haven't, I'm sure you have heard of it in the sense. The severity of what this is unbelievable.
To be honest, I've never really heard of it.
I know I haven't either. To be honest with you, Cave, I haven't heard of it either.
Okay, NOA, like Noah, IDE, Noahide laws. They base it off the Talmud, their scriptures and what they believe in, and it's sinister. It's sinister where these people, we think that fund Israel and do good things and take care of these people that are suffering and all this stuff. When you read what they put together and have come to control, and this is what they believe in, you retract your money and you have a different thought on these people, because it's bad. And it's disturbing to me to think that we have enough problems as it is, that this is creeping in. And this is something that's just like the rest of the New World government. It's a drip effect.
There's many factions of the New World Order and things that we have to be concerned about. You're absolutely correct about that, and that if that's one of them, I'll look up and do some research on that. Actually, probably do a podcast show on it. But while I got the sheriff on the line here, I want to give him the last thoughts here before I let him go. And I appreciate all the time he spent with me on the phone here. We didn't discuss that actually, how long he could spend, but he said his calendar was empty tonight, so I appreciate it. I want you to take a couple minutes to address my listening audience. I have 24,000 listeners that listen live here around the country. I'm not CNN or Fox, but this is alternative media. But we support our local sheriffs. We love you guys, and we want you to be on our side. And I'm sure you want us on your side. Talk to us. Talk to the people out there right now. The message, whatever message you can send to the patriot community, the militia community, or the community there in Michigan that's worried right now, worried about our republic. The floor is yours, sir. Go ahead.
It's about education. Like I said, this is my 5th term, and I've spent an awful lot of my time trying to educate myself on the actual office of the sheriff. And it kind of started because when I first got elected, I remember sitting in that chair in the old corner there of the building and going, all right, now what do I do? And so I started looking into it because I knew it was more than the police chief job, and then police, which is basically policy. You're a policy enforcer. And we've always had this, I can't really call it strict, unwritten policy that we're peace officers. And I was fortunate enough to be hired in when we had a lot of people who had many, many years of experience in how to handle people. And it's almost like I don't want to call it an attitude, but more of a way of life. And one of the things that really changed my thoughts on even traffic citations is we had this thing up on a bulletin board, and it was saying, hey, people running the stop sign at this one intersection. So I work midnight shifts, so I go out there at 4:30 in the morning, and we were allowed to sit in this one guy's driveway. And here it is, about 4:30, 4:45, something like that, and this pitch blackout, no other traffic around, and this guy does what we call a Michigan stop, just kind of rolls through it. So I go over and
Michigan stop. That's the first time I've ever heard that. Michigan stop.
But anyway, so I go pull this guy over, and I do that robotic thing they teach you in the academy. And about the reason why I pulled you over today, sir, is this. I need to see your driver's license, registration, proof of insurance, that. And I get back to my car, wrote him a ticket for disobeying a stop sign, and go over and hand him the ticket. The guy looks at me, and I'll never forget these words. What difference did you make? There's nobody around. And I could not sleep that morning. That's how powerful just that little statement was to me. I could not sleep that morning. I ended up calling up the prosecutor's office, asked them to dismiss that ticket. And I told him why, and of course, a prosecutor there started laughing at me. And,
yeah.
But that was one of those things early in my career that really affected me, and that's when the light was on. And then when I became sheriff, I tried getting that same concept into my other deputies. We had the thing called 416 grant, and the 416 grant is we needed more deputies, so they decided to do this grant, and the grant number was 416, and it was secondary road patrol. So we were out there enforcing traffic laws, but the way they funded it was through traffic citations. And for many, many years, I've been complaining about that, saying that's a conflict of interest. You can't be doing that. You write bad tickets. The judges want to keep deputies on. They make bad decisions on the bench. We finally got that change where they're just going to fund the helping slow down people on these back roads. And, we got a lot of Amish and kids riding bicycles and all that. So I guess where I'm going with all this is I want sheriffs out there to start focusing more on the peace rather than on the laws, the statutory stuff that they got out there. You start focusing on the peace, the people will follow you.
Amen.
That's great what you said right there, and I'm sure a couple of these guys that have been on the call here tonight are going to email you and try to reach out to you. And Sheriff, there you could be the foundation, the rock. And Michigan is always that state. And look, we started out with that. Michigan, the militia community. We all heard about it in the 90s when we were younger. The militia. We all thought about the militia coming out of Michigan, and that's basically what the foundation of this country is about. The militia. We are all militia. And you being the sheriff that took the voice, you took the reins here tonight to come on this podcast, and the many people that I've interviewed throughout the years, I must say I'm so impressed, and the callers that called in here tonight were so respectful, and because this is live internet radio, and believe me, I get the real Fruit Loops that come on here, but every caller that's called in here tonight had something so substantial and generous to offer you for advice. It was awesome. It was great. I want to wrap it up here with Ronald Reagan here. But go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say there's a question I want to ask everybody. And when these militia groups get in there and they're going to get infiltrated by the FBI or your state police or even maybe some of your county guys, I want to know why they're allowing these guys just to continue to plan these things. At what point are you going to be a human being and actually say, hey, guys, this is not a good idea. This is who I'm with, and I'm going to try and steer you guys in a different direction. Instead, they go and feed it, and then next thing you know, we got prisons tied up, courtrooms tied up, juries. People have called in for
that
jury
was for
duty.
what you just said right there was for Barry Croft and the other gentleman that went through the recent case right there, and God bless you, sir, for saying that. And because you're in Michigan and you know that was bogus what they did. And yes, hey, FBI guys out there that are listening right now, look, you're our brothers and sisters too. We're Americans. Do the right thing. At what point are you going to say, hey, steer these guys to do the right thing and go back to your superior and say, hey, we don't have a case here. These guys ain't doing nothing wrong. But by all means, if someone's out there trying to hurt somebody, do your job. Of course, do your job. Always do. If you do your job, nobody has a problem with that. But when you don't do your job and you're trying to perpetrate something that's not there, people know, and we know, the people in the Patriot community know, we're smart. We're out there, we got our ears to the ground, we're on the internet, we're out there talking to each other in the community, we're out there meeting with each other, we're out there proactive, and that's what all these people are that cared here tonight, that talked with you, Sheriff. These are people that care about their country. They love their republic. They want it back. They're sick and tired of watching it slip away. And it's sad. It's sad to watch our country, our America, just fall down the way it has and the way it is. And that's what really is a sad thing about it. But I want to say thank you so much. And I got 2 minutes here, Ronald Reagan, and everybody just hang up. And we're going to go over to Mike Singer's Zoom room privately. Those of you know where we go after that, hopefully, and talk privately. But, Sheriff, thank you for joining me tonight. God bless you. God bless our republic.